man's false infidelity, accusations against black wife lead to emotional reunion with her and triplets after 5 years. The morning sun painted Washington, D.C.'s skyline in hues of gold and amber, its rays reflecting off the gleaming glass facades of corporate towers that pierced the autumn sky. Inside the prestigious Ellison Tower, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation as marketing executives and industry leaders gathered for the annual Global Marketing Summit, an event that would unwittingly become the stage for an extraordinary love story. Calantha Ione stood in the preparation room, her heart beating steadily as she reviewed her presentation one final time. At 32, she had worked relentlessly to reach this position, breaking through barriers that society had placed before her. Her journey from a small-town marketing graduate to becoming one of the youngest marketing managers at Griffin & Associates hadn't been easy, but determination ran in her veins like fire. She smoothed down her tailored navy blazer, an armor of professionalism that concealed the butterfly storm in her stomach. The presentation she was about to deliver wasn't just another corporate speech. It was the culmination of months of innovative research on emerging markets in the digital age. Her colleagues had warned her that her ideas might be too progressive for the traditional business crowd, but Calantha believed in her vision with unwavering conviction. Among the attendees sat Bernard Ellison, the 45-year-old CEO of Ellison Industries, known as much for his business acumen as for his reputation as one of Washington's most eligible bachelors. He absently adjusted his platinum watch, his mind already wandering to the countless meetings that awaited him later that day. As the chief guest, he had sat through numerous presentations that morning, each blending into the next in a monotonous parade of predictable market analyses and safe projections. The room hushed as Calantha took the stage, her heels clicking confidently against the polished hardwood floor. The soft lighting caught the subtle highlights in her dark hair, creating a halo effect that immediately drew Bernard's attention, but it was her opening statement that made him sit up straighter in his leather chair. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been looking at market transformation all wrong," she began, her voice clear and commanding. "While we've been focusing on digital adaptation, we've overlooked the human element that drives every successful marketing strategy." Bernard found himself leaning forward, his scheduled meetings forgotten. There was something magnetic about her presence, a rare combination of intellectual brilliance and authentic passion that cut through the corporate facade like a beam of pure sunlight. As she articulated her vision of integrating artificial intelligence with human-centered marketing approaches, he watched her gestures, the way her eyes lit up when she emphasized key points, the subtle smile that played on her lips when she shared industry insights that challenged conventional wisdom. The presentation room, typically a theatre of polite attention and subtle smartphone checking, was completely engaged. Even the most conservative board members were nodding along as Calantha painted a picture of a future where technology and human psychology merged to create marketing strategies that spoke to the soul rather than just the wallet. As she concluded her presentation, the applause that followed wasn't the usual perfunctory corporate clapping. It was genuine, enthusiastic, and sparked with the energy of minds awakened to new possibilities. Bernard found himself rising from his chair, something he hadn't done for any other presenter that day. His feet carried him toward the podium before he fully realized what he was doing. Calantha was gathering her materials when she sensed his approach. Looking up, she found herself gazing into eyes that seemed to hold galaxies of ambition and understanding. They were the eyes of someone who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be, much like she did. "Ms. Ione," Bernard said, extending his hand, "your presentation was—" He paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound like the standard corporate praise. It was revolutionary. Their handshake lingered a moment longer than necessary, both feeling an unexpected current of connection that transcended the professional setting. Calantha noticed the warmth in his grip, the subtle cologne that spoke of refined taste, and most importantly, the genuine interest in his expression that went beyond mere professional courtesy. "Mr. Ellison," she responded, her voice carrying a hint of pleasant surprise. "I hope I haven't completely upended your marketing strategies." There was a playful confidence in her tone that made Bernard smile. A real smile, not the practiced one he used for business photographs. "On the contrary," he replied, "I believe you've just saved us years of misguided efforts." He glanced at his watch, then back at her, making a decision that would alter both their lives forever. "Would you be interested in discussing your ideas further? Perhaps over coffee?" The question hung in the air between them, charged with possibilities. Around them, the conference room was emptying, but neither seemed to notice. In that moment, surrounded by the trappings of corporate success, the gleaming floors, the expensive suits, the sophisticated technology, two souls recognized something in each other that had nothing to do with business strategies or market analyses. Calantha considered the invitation, aware of the professional implications, but also sensing that this was more than a business meeting. There was something in Bernard's expression that spoke of genuine intellectual curiosity and perhaps something deeper. "Coffee sounds perfect," she replied, surprising herself with how right the words felt. As they walked together toward the building's exclusive executive cafe, neither could have predicted how this simple acceptance would set in motion a series of events that would test their love, break their hearts, and ultimately prove that some connections are strong enough to survive even the cruelest twists of fate. The autumn sun continued its journey across the Washington sky, its rays now casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ellison Tower. But inside, in that space between professional courtesy and personal connection, a new light was dawning, one that would illuminate both their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Chapter 2. A whirlwind romance. That first coffee meeting stretched into hours, neither Bernard nor Calantha noticing as the afternoon sun painted shadows across their table in the executive cafe. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, from marketing strategies to personal philosophies, each discovery about the other feeling like finding a missing puzzle piece they hadn't known they were searching for. Bernard found himself captivated by how Calantha's mind worked. She didn't just see business opportunities, she saw chances to make the world better. When she spoke about her journey, growing up in a middle-class family, working through college, fighting for every opportunity, her eyes sparkled with the same passion that had illuminated her presentation. "My father always said success isn't about where you start, but how far you're willing to go," she shared, stirring her second cup of coffee. Bernard leaned forward, recognizing in her words the same drive that had pushed him to transform his father's small company into an empire. Their professional meetings became more frequent, each one carrying an underlying current of something deeper. Bernard would find himself straightening his tie before she entered his office, while Calantha caught herself smiling at the mere sight of his name in her email inbox. One rainy evening, as they reviewed marketing proposals in his office, thunder crashed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ellison Tower. The lights flickered, and in that brief moment of darkness, both felt the electric tension that had been building between them. "Would you like to have dinner with me?" Bernard asked suddenly, setting aside the proposal they had been discussing. "Not to talk about business," he added, his usual confidence tinged with vulnerability. Calantha's heart skipped a beat. "I'd like that very much," she replied, her voice soft but sure. Their first official date was at an intimate French restaurant in Georgetown. Bernard had reserved the entire rooftop terrace, where twinkling lights mimicked the stars above. As they shared stories about their dreams and fears, the lines between CEO and marketing manager dissolved, leaving just a man and woman discovering the rare joy of finding someone who truly understood them. "I've built this whole empire," Bernard confessed over dessert, "but sometimes I wonder if I've missed what really matters in life." The honesty in his voice touched something deep in Calantha's heart. "Maybe some things are worth waiting for," she responded, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Their courtship became the talk of Washington social circles, but neither cared for the gossip. They were too busy falling in love. In quiet moments at art galleries, during long walks in Rock Creek Park, over impromptu picnics in Bernard's office when they both worked late. Bernard discovered a playful side of himself he thought he'd lost years ago. Calantha showed him how to find joy in simple things, like dancing in the rain after a successful meeting, or trying street food from local vendors despite his usual preference for fine dining. In turn, Calantha found in Bernard not just a successful businessman, but a man with a deep capacity for love and understanding. He listened to her ideas with genuine interest, supported her career aspirations, and showed her that true partnership meant walking side by side, not one behind the other. 3 months into their relationship, during a surprise helicopter trip to New York, Bernard landed them atop the Empire State Building at sunset. As the city glowed golden beneath them, he knelt on one knee, presenting not just a ring, but a promise. "Calantha," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you've shown me that success means nothing without someone to share it with. You challenge me to be better, remind me to be humble, and make me happier than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Tears sparkled in Calantha's eyes as she nodded, words failing her for the first time since they'd met. The ring, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds, sparkled on her finger, but it was the joy radiating from their faces that truly shone. Their wedding, 6 months later, was an affair that merged their two worlds perfectly. The grandeur of Bernard's social circle met the warmth of Calantha's family traditions. In the National Cathedral, as they exchanged vows, guests whispered not about the expense or extravagance, but about the palpable love that filled the sacred space. "I choose you," Calantha said in her vows, her voice carrying clearly through the cathedral, "not for your success or status, but for your heart, for the man who brings me coffee just the way I like it, who debates marketing strategies with me until dawn, who makes me believe that fairy tales can come true." Bernard's voice shook as he responded, "I choose you for showing me that true wealth isn't in bank accounts, but in moments of genuine connection. You've made me rich in all the ways that matter." As they danced their first dance at the reception beneath a ceiling of twinkling lights that mimicked the stars of their first date, Bernard whispered in her ear, "This isn't just your wedding. This is the beginning of our greatest adventure." Little did they know how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how their love would be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. But in that moment, spinning slowly under the starlit ceiling, they were simply two souls who had found their perfect match, ready to face whatever life had in store together. The first 3 years of Bernard and Calantha's marriage unfolded like pages from a storybook written in gold ink. Their Washington mansion, a stately Georgian revival nestled in the prestigious Kalorama neighborhood, became more than just a home. It transformed into a sanctuary where love bloomed in both grand gestures and quiet moments. Each morning began with a ritual that spoke volumes about their connection. Bernard, despite his early meetings, would prepare Calantha's favorite breakfast smoothie himself, a blend of tropical fruits that reminded her of her grandmother's Caribbean heritage. Calantha, in turn, would leave handwritten notes in his briefcase, sometimes business insights that would later prove invaluable, other times simply words of love that would make him smile during tedious board meetings. Their professional lives soared in tandem with their personal happiness. Calantha revolutionized Ellison Industries' marketing approach, bringing a fresh perspective that doubled their market share in 18 months. Her success wasn't just about numbers. She had a way of inspiring loyalty in their employees, transforming the corporate culture from one of rigid hierarchy to dynamic collaboration. "You've brought soul to these steel and glass towers," Bernard often said, watching her interact with their team members. His pride in her accomplishments shone in his eyes, untainted by ego or competition. Instead of feeling threatened by her rising star, he delighted in her success, often seeking her counsel on major business decisions. Their evenings were sacred time. No matter how demanding their schedules, they maintained their tradition of cooking dinner together at least 3 times a week. The kitchen became their creative space, where they'd experiment with recipes while discussing their days, their dreams, and their growing vision for the future. "I never knew love could be like this," Calantha confided one evening as they slow danced in their kitchen to Ella Fitzgerald, pasta sauce simmering forgotten on the stove. "So complete, so peaceful." Bernard pulled her closer, breathing in the jasmine scent of her hair. "You've taught me that true success isn't measured in profit margins," he murmured. "It's measured in moments like these." Their home became known for hosting gatherings that broke traditional social barriers. Charity galas shared space with community outreach programs. Bernard's old money associates found themselves engaged in fascinating conversations with young entrepreneurs Calantha had discovered and mentored. Together, they were building not just a business empire, but a legacy of positive change. On weekends, they would often escape the city's bustle, taking impromptu trips to their cabin in the Shenandoah Valley. There, away from the pressures of their corporate life, they'd hike trails, read books by the fireplace, and talk about their future. Their dreams were grand yet intimate, expanding their philanthropic work, starting innovative educational programs, and, someday, filling their home with children's laughter. Their second anniversary celebration became legendary in Washington social circles, not for its extravagance, but for its heart. Instead of a lavish party, they organized a fundraising event for educational initiatives in underserved communities. The sight of Bernard Ellison, one of Washington's most powerful CEOs, serving food alongside his wife at a community center, spoke volumes about how she'd transformed him. "You make me want to be worthy of your love," he told her that night as they walked hand in hand through their moonlit garden. "Every day, you challenge me to be not just successful, but significant." Calantha squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with emotion. "You've always been worthy," she replied. "You just needed someone to remind you of the greatness in your heart." Their third year brought even greater triumphs. Ellison Industries expanded globally, but with a conscience. Each new venture included initiatives for sustainable development and community empowerment. Calantha's innovative Heart of Business program, which integrated social responsibility into corporate strategy, was featured in leading business publications. Their love seemed unshakable, their connection deepening with each passing day. They moved through Washington's high society like a force of nature, their genuine affection for each other breaking through the usual facade of political correctness and social posturing. Young couples looked at them with admiration, while their peers marveled at how marriage had enhanced rather than hindered their individual growth. But life has a way of testing the strongest bonds. As their third anniversary approached, subtle changes began to appear, so subtle that at first they were easy to dismiss. Bernard's gaze would sometimes drift to young families in the park, a flicker of longing crossing his face. At social gatherings, he'd spend more time with colleagues' children, his laughter carrying a hint of wistfulness. Calantha noticed these moments, filing them away in her heart. She saw the way he'd linger in the nursery they planned to furnish, his fingers trailing over the empty walls. But their communication, once so open and flowing, began to stumble over this unspoken desire. They were still deeply in love, their daily lives still filled with joy and shared purpose. Yet beneath the surface, like a tiny crack in a magnificent vase, pressure was building. Pressure that would soon test their love in ways they never imagined. As their third year drew to a close, they hosted a magnificent Christmas gala at their mansion. Snow fell softly outside, coating Washington in white silence, while inside, hundreds of guests celebrated the season and the couple who had shown them that true love could exist in the cutthroat world of business. "Look at what we've built together," Bernard said proudly, holding Calantha close as they watched their guests mingle and laugh. "We're just getting started," she replied, believing it with all her heart. Neither could have known that these perfect years were about to end, that their love would soon face its greatest test. But perhaps that's the nature of perfect happiness. It shines brightest just before the storm. The transformation began like autumn, so gradual at first that the changing colours were barely noticeable, until suddenly the whole landscape had shifted. Their 4th year of marriage arrived with Bernard's 50th birthday, a milestone that seemed to awaken something restless in his soul. The first signs were subtle, appearing in the quiet moments between their usual rhythm of love and success. Bernard would linger longer in their home's empty west wing, the space they'd once playfully designated as their future nursery. His eyes would drift to young families in the park, carrying a weight of longing that grew heavier with each passing month. "Imagine, Calantha," he'd say during their evening walks, watching children play in Kalorama's manicured gardens. "A little one running ahead of us, discovering the world through fresh eyes." His voice carried a new urgency, an undercurrent of anxiety that rippled through their once peaceful evenings. Their morning ritual of shared breakfast began to carry unspoken tension. Bernard's business magazines were increasingly replaced by family-oriented publications, strategically left open to articles about legacy planning and succession. Calantha noticed, her heart growing heavier with each silent gesture. The pressure built slowly, like a symphony reaching its crescendo. During board meetings, Bernard's older colleagues would casually mention their grandchildren, their pointed glances as carrying expectations that weighed on him like lead. The empire he'd built, now worth billions, seemed to whisper questions about its future stewardship. One particularly tense evening, as thunder rumbled outside their Georgian mansion, the dam finally broke. Bernard paced their living room, his usually confident stride betraying his inner turmoil. "We need to talk about our future," he began, his voice strained. "About carrying on the Ellison legacy." Calantha set aside her tablet, recognizing the gravity in his tone. "We've built an amazing legacy together," she offered carefully. "Our philanthropic work, the company's expansion—" "That's not what I mean," Bernard interrupted, his words sharp with frustration. "I'm talking about children, Calantha. An heir. Someone to carry forward everything we've built." The silence that followed was deafening. Calantha stood, moving to touch his arm, but he pulled away. A small gesture that felt like a chasm opening between them. "I'm getting older," he continued, his voice rising with barely contained emotion. "Every day I walk through this empty house, I'm reminded of what's missing. Do you understand? This isn't just about wanting children, it's about responsibility, about ensuring everything I've worked for doesn't end with us." Calantha felt her professional poise cracking. "Bernard, we've never properly discussed this. Maybe we should consider seeing a fertility specialist together, understand our options." His laugh was bitter, unfamiliar. "A specialist? You think I need a doctor to tell me I'm capable of having children?" The pride that had made him a titan of industry now turned toxic, poisoning his words. "That's not what I meant," Calantha pleaded, her marketing expertise useless in the face of this personal crisis. "It's standard procedure for couples who—" "Couples?" he cut in. "Or just me? Is that what you're implying? That at my age—" "Stop!" Calantha's voice cracked. "Please, just listen. We're partners in everything. Whatever challenges we face, we should face them together. Let's approach this methodically like we do everything else." But Bernard was already lost in his spiral of fear and pride. The man who had once moved mountains to win her love now stood before her, transformed by his desperate need for an heir. His next words fell like ice between them. I built this empire from the ground up. I won't let it crumble because you're not ready for motherhood. The accusation hung in the air like smoke, choking the love that had flourished between them for 3 perfect years. Calantha stepped back, physically rocked by the unfairness of his words. "I've never said I don't want children," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. "I just want us to approach this together, sensibly." But Bernard was no longer listening. The pressure of legacy, age, and societal expectations had created a perfect storm that was now threatening to destroy everything they'd built together. As lightning illuminated their living room in harsh bursts, Calantha watched the man she loved transform into someone unrecognizable. His face, once soft with adoration for her, now held lines of frustration and unspoken accusations. "Make an appointment with the doctor," he finally said, his voice cold with command rather than request. "We need to address this. Now." That night marked the beginning of their descent from paradise. As Calantha lay awake in their bed, listening to Bernard's restless breathing beside her, she realized that sometimes the greatest threats to love don't come from outside forces, but from the unspoken fears that grow in the spaces between two hearts. The perfect harmony of their first 3 years began to crack, like fine china under too much pressure. Their morning rituals became mechanical, their evening conversations guarded. The mansion that had once echoed with their laughter now held shadows of unspoken words and growing resentment. In her private moments, Calantha would touch the wedding ring on her finger, remembering Bernard's words from what felt like a lifetime ago. "This is the beginning of our greatest adventure." She hadn't known then that some adventures would test not just their love, but their very understanding of each other. The night that shattered their world arrived with a storm that mirrored the tempest in their hearts. Rain lashed against the windows of their Kalorama mansion, each drop a testimony to the tears that would soon fall. Inside, the opulent rooms that had witnessed their love story now became the stage for its most devastating chapter. Calantha stood in Bernard's home office, clutching the medical report that had sparked this final confrontation. Her voice trembled but held firm. "The doctor said we should both come in for tests. It's standard procedure, Bernard. Please, just listen." But Bernard Ellison, the man who had once moved heaven and earth to win her heart, had transformed into someone she barely recognized. His silhouette against the storm-dark window was rigid with pride and fury. Lightning flashed, illuminating the pain etched across his face. "Tests?" His laugh was harsh, unfamiliar. "You dare suggest that I need testing? I who built this empire from nothing?" He turned, his eyes reflecting not the warm love she'd known for years, but a cold fury born of wounded pride. "Do you know what they whisper in the boardroom? That I chose beauty over legacy, that I've let the Ellison name down." Calantha felt her heart fracturing with each word. "This isn't about the boardroom or the Ellison name. This is about us, about our future together. Why can't you see that I'm trying to help?" "Help?" Bernard's voice rose to match the thunder outside. "By questioning my manhood? By suggesting that I'm the problem?" His hand swept across his desk, sending papers flying. "I don't need tests. I need a wife who understands her duty to this family." The words hung in the air like poison. Calantha stepped back, physically rocked by their force. In that moment, she saw clearly how far they'd fallen from their dream of perfect love. "Duty?" she whispered, tears finally breaking free. "Is that all I am to you now? A duty? What happened to the man who said he loved me for my mind, my heart?" Bernard's face contorted with a complex mix of emotions. Love warring with pride, fear battling with anger. "That man needs an heir," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. "That man needs to know his legacy will continue." "And what about my need?" Calantha's voice gained strength, even as her heart shattered. "What about the partnership we promised each other? The trust, the respect?" Respect? Bernard's laugh was bitter. Is it respect to suggest that I'm barren? That I can't… He stopped, running his hands through his silver hair in frustration. I don't want to live like this, with these constant implications, these suggestions that I'm less than… Then maybe you don't want to live with me at all. Calantha's words emerged soft but clear, a challenge and a heartbroken realization all at once. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, the storm reached its crescendo, but inside, time seemed to stop. Bernard turned to her, his face a mask of pride and pain. Maybe I don't. 2 words. Just 2 words to destroy the fairy tale they'd lived for 3 glorious years. Calantha felt her world tilting on its axis, but she held herself tall, dignity her last defence. Bernard, she pleaded one last time, don't let pride destroy what we have. I love you. I don't want a penny of your wealth. I never did. I just want you, the man I married, the man who saw me for who I am. She moved toward him, reaching out, but he stepped away. The gesture was small but minor, a chasm opening between them that no love could bridge. Get out, he whispered, then louder. Get out. I can't look at you anymore. I can't bear these constant reminders of my failure. Calantha stood frozen, watching the love of her life transform into a stranger before her eyes. Rain pounded against the windows, nature's own tears for what was being lost. You want me to leave? Her voice was barely audible. After everything we've built together. Leave, Bernard roared, his composure finally shattering completely. Take your suggestions and your tests and your pity, and leave my house. The next moments passed in a blur of tears and heartbreak. Calantha moved through their home. No, his home now, like a ghost, gathering only the essentials. Each step felt like walking through broken glass, each breath a battle against the sobs threatening to overwhelm her. As she reached the front door, she turned one last time. Bernard stood at the top of the grand staircase, a silhouette of the man she'd loved. For a moment, she thought she saw his resolve waver, saw his hand reach out as if to call her back. But pride, that terrible, destructive pride, won out. He turned away, leaving her to step out into the storm alone. The rain soaked her instantly, mixing with her tears until she couldn't tell which was which. Behind her, the mansion that had been her paradise now loomed like a mausoleum to their dead dreams. Thunder rolled overhead as she walked away, her heels clicking on the wet pavement in a rhythm that sounded like goodbye. In her hand, she clutched her phone, already making plans, already thinking of escape. London called to her like a beacon of hope in the darkness. Her heart, her heart remained behind, shattered on the marble floors of a mansion built on love and destroyed by pride. That night, as her taxi disappeared into the storm, neither Bernard nor Calantha knew that this wasn't the end of their story, but merely its darkest chapter. Sometimes love must be broken before it can be rebuilt stronger. Sometimes hearts must be shattered before they can learn to beat in perfect rhythm once again. Fate has a peculiar way of writing chapters we never saw coming. For Calantha, the story of her rebirth began in the grey embrace of London's winter, where heartbreak would unexpectedly bloom into a different kind of love. The first months were a blur of reinvention. Landing at Heathrow with nothing but a suitcase of memories and determination, Calantha transformed her pain into purpose. She secured a modest flat in Notting Hill, nothing like her Washington mansion, but a space she could fill with new dreams. Start again, she whispered to herself each morning, watching London fog roll past her window. Just start again. Her marketing expertise opened doors, but it was her resilience that pushed them wide. Within weeks, she landed a position at Sterling & Drake, a boutique marketing firm that recognized the diamond they had discovered. Her innovative strategies, shaped by years at Ellison Industries, brought fresh energy to their campaigns. But life had a greater plan in motion. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening, appropriate for London, devastating in its content. Sarah, her closest friend from university days, had died during childbirth. The tragedy carried an impossible request: guardianship of triplets, 3 tiny souls who needed a mother's love. Calantha sat in her flat that night, Sarah's last voicemail playing through her tears. "I know it's a lot to ask, Cal, but there's no one I trust more. If anything happens, they'll need someone strong, someone who knows how to love completely, like you do." The irony wasn't lost on her. Here were children arriving not through the path she and Bernard had fought over, but through a tender thread of friendship and trust. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humour, albeit a bittersweet one. The transition from corporate warrior to mother of 3 was like learning to dance in a hurricane. The triplets, Sophia, Alexander, and Isabella, were barely 3 months old, their tiny faces still scrunching against the world's brightness. "We'll figure this out together," Calantha promised them, her heart expanding in ways she never imagined possible. Her flat became a nursery, marketing reports sharing space with bottles and baby toys. The silence that had echoed her loneliness now filled with midnight lullabies and morning giggles. Sterling and Drake surprised her Hajta with unprecedented support. "Work from home," her director insisted. "These babies need you more than we do right now." They created a flexible schedule that allowed her to balance motherhood with her career, proving that sometimes corporate hearts could be bigger than bottom lines. Each milestone became a celebration and a secret wound. When Alexander took his first steps, Calantha found herself reaching for her phone to call Bernard before reality crashed back. When Sophia said her first word, "Mama," the joy was tinged with thoughts of what could have been. London's marketing circles soon buzzed with stories of the American executive who juggled triplets and multi-million-pound campaigns with equal grace. But few knew of the nights she spent crying over old photos, or the way she still reached for Bernard's side of the bed in half sleep. The children became her anchor and her wings. Through their eyes, she rediscovered the world's magic. The way pigeons in Trafalgar Square danced like ballet performers, how the London Eye lit up the Thames like a giant Christmas ornament. Their love helped heal the cracks in her heart, even if some fissures remained tender to the touch. "Your mother was my guardian angel," she would tell them, sharing stories of Sarah's bravery and kindness. "And now, you're mine." As months turned to years, Calantha built a new kind of success. One measured, not in market shares, but in bedtime stories, not in corporate acquisitions, but in tiny victories like all 3 children learning to tie their shoes. Her home transformed into a haven of love and laughter, proof that family could be born from friendship as surely as from blood, yet in quiet moments, when London's rain tapped against her windows like memory's fingers, Calantha would touch her wedding ring, still worn, still carrying whispers of a love that had burned too bright, too fast. She kept tabs on Bernard through business news, each headline about Ellison Industries both a comfort and a knife to her heart. 5 years passed like a dream and a lifetime. The triplets grew from helpless infants to vibrant children, their personalities blooming like flowers after rain. Sophia, the leader with her mother's determination. Alexander, the peacemaker, wise beyond his years. Isabella, the dreamer, who saw magic in every corner of their world. What Calantha didn't know, as she built this new life brick by precious brick, was that fate wasn't finished with her story. That sometimes the greatest chapters come after what we think is the ending. That love, true love, has a way of finding its way home, even if home has changed its address to a London postcode. The triplets were 5 when destiny decided to shuffle its cards again. And it would begin, as all great turning points do, with an unexpected glimpse across a park, a moment that would bridge 5 years of silence and transform heartbreak into hope once more. The transformation of Bernard Ellison, from corporate titan to humble seeker of second chances, unfolded like a masterfully composed symphony, each day bringing a new note of hope, regret, and unwavering love. Day 1, the first step. Dawn found him outside Sterling and Drake, heart pounding as he placed a handwritten letter beneath a single white rose. "Some things, like my love for you, remain unchanged by time," the note read. He retreated to his car, watching from a distance as Calantha discovered his offering, her fingers lingering on the petals before disappearing inside. Day 2. Echoes of Memory. A vintage record player appeared at her office, playing their wedding song on endless loop. The accompanying note spoke volumes. "Every success rings hollow without your smile to share it." Day 3. Seeds of Hope. He transformed her office balcony into a miniature garden of white roses. Not a grand gesture, but an intimate reminder of the garden they'd once planted together in Washington. Like these flowers, love can bloom again in the most unexpected places. Day 4 through 7, the symphony continues. Each day brought a new chapter of their story. Photographs, mementos, pieces of their shared past carefully chosen to show not what was lost, but what could be rebuilt. Bernard would station himself across the street, not to intrude, but to hold space, his presence a gentle promise. This time, pride wouldn't win. Day 8, a mother's grace, 3 identical teddy bears appeared on her desk, each wearing miniature business suits. "To the children who showed me what family truly means," the note read, acknowledging her greatest achievement, the family she'd built from love alone. Day 9, Corporate Evolution. News reached her of Ellison Industries' revolutionary new family policies, adoption support, fertility coverage, flexible parenting leave. His message was clear. "You taught me that legacy isn't about bloodlines, but about the lives we touch." Days 10 through 13, building bridges. Each gesture grew more personal, more vulnerable. A journal filled with 5 years of unsent letters. A children's book he'd written about a king who learned humility through loss. Small, meaningful tokens that spoke not of his wealth, but of his transformed heart. The final day, a promise. His last note arrived with the morning sun. "I'll be across the street at sunset, not to demand, not to pressure, but to show you that some loves are worth the wait. Whether you choose to look up or walk by, know that every day without you has been a lesson in what truly matters." True to his word, Bernard appeared each evening as London's business district emptied, taking his quiet vigil across from Sterling and Drake. Not pushing, not demanding, simply being present. His silhouette, a testament to patience and perseverance. Sometimes Calantha would glance through her office window, catching glimpses of the man who had once ruled through power, now standing sentinel, with nothing but hope and humility as his armour. In those 14 days, Bernard rewrote their story not through grand gestures or corporate might, but through the quiet dignity of a man who had learned that true strength lies not in commanding love's return, but in being worthy of its grace. The envelope waited on Calantha's doorstep like a white flag of surrender, Bernard's distinctive handwriting dancing across its surface in elegant strokes. Her maid, Mrs. Thompson, had placed it carefully on the antique side table in the entryway, where it caught the late afternoon sunlight streaming through the Victorian windows of her London home. "A gentleman left this," Mrs. Thompson said softly, her eyes kind with understanding. He stood there for a moment, touching the envelope as if it held his heart. "I've never seen someone look so hopeful and terrified at the same time." With trembling fingers, Calantha opened the letter. the paper whispering secrets of possibility as she unfolded it. My dearest Calantha, time has been both a cruel teacher and a gentle healer. 5 years without you have been an odyssey through the darkest corners of my soul, each day a reminder of how pride can blind us to the truest treasures of our hearts. I write this letter not from the desk of the CEO who once thought he could command happiness into existence, but from the garden bench where you used to read on Sunday mornings. Our Washington home has been a mausoleum of memories. Your laughter still echoes in empty rooms. Your grace still lingers in the spaces you left behind. For 5 years, I've searched. Every dark-haired woman in every international meeting made my heart stop for a moment. Every marketing presentation reminded me of that first day when you stood before me and changed my world with your brilliance. I've walked the streets of countless cities, hoping to catch a glimpse of your smile, to hear the sound of your voice that has never stopped ringing in my ears. But seeing you in Hyde Park, the joy radiating from you as you guided those beautiful children through their world, I finally understood everything. You were right, my love. Family isn't about biology or bloodlines. It's about the love that flows through our veins stronger than any DNA. I've spent these years learning the lessons you tried to teach me. I've faced my medical truth. The doctors confirmed what you gently suggested. The problem was never you. It was my pride that made me blind, my fear that made me cruel. I've learned that true strength lies not in denying our weaknesses, but in facing them with courage and grace, just as you always did. I've transformed our company's policies, creating support systems for families of all kinds. Every time we help an employee with fertility treatments or adoption support, I think of you and the wisdom you tried to share. I've learned that legacy isn't about passing on a name or a fortune. It's about the lives we touch, the love we share, the changes we make in the world. Watching you with those children showed me the true meaning of legacy. It's the light we pass on, not the name we carry. My love for you has never dimmed. Instead, it has matured like fine wine, deepened by understanding, strengthened by regret, purified by time. Every success has felt hollow without you to share it. Every triumph has been ash in my mouth because I couldn't see your proud smile. Tomorrow evening, I will be waiting at Tower Bridge at sunset, not as the Bernard who let pride destroy paradise, but as a man who has learned that love is both stronger and more delicate than any empire built of steel and glass. If you come, we can talk about everything or nothing. We can begin again or simply close our chapter with understanding. The choice will be yours, as it always should have been. And if you don't come, know this. You were right about everything. The man you loved existed beneath the pride that destroyed us. And these years without you have stripped away everything but that truth. You showed me what real strength looks like, not in commands or demands, but in the gentle courage it takes to love completely and honestly. The triplets are beautiful, Calantha. They shine with the love you've given them. Whatever you decide tomorrow, know that I finally understand. Family is about love, not blood. Legacy is about impact, not inheritance. And true wealth has nothing to do with money and everything to do with the hearts we touch. I'll wait for you at the bridge where you once told me you loved London's mix of history and hope. Like that bridge, I'm hoping to connect our past to whatever future you decide is possible. Forever yours, Bernard P.S. The white roses in our garden still bloom where you planted them. Some loves, like some flowers, refuse to fade even when neglected by pride and time. The letter dropped to her lap as tears flowed freely down Calantha's cheeks. Outside, London's evening light painted the sky in shades of possibility, while inside, a heart that had carefully guarded itself for 5 years began to feel the walls crumbling. In their playroom upstairs, the triplets' laughter rang out, a sound that had healed her heart day by day. Now, that same sound seemed to whisper that perhaps some broken things could be made whole again, stronger at the mended places. Calantha touched the letter once more, feeling years of pain and love and possibility flowing through the paper like electricity. Tomorrow would bring choices, but tonight, for the first time in 5 years, her heart dared to dream of bridges instead of walls. London's Tower Bridge stood majestic against the setting sun, its Victorian towers reaching toward a sky painted in shades of amber and rose. As dusk approached, Bernard Ellison, once the embodiment of corporate power, now stood vulnerable against the bridge's iron railings, his silhouette a study in hopeful anticipation and nervous energy. Gone was the commanding CEO who had once ruled boardrooms with an iron will. In his place stood a man transformed by loss and learning, his silver hair catching the golden light, his hands slightly trembling as they gripped the bridge's railing. Every passing minute felt like an eternity, each clicking heel against the bridge's walkway, making his heart stop, only to restart with renewed anxiety when it wasn't her. The first hour of waiting had nearly passed. Bernard's hope began to fade like the all-dying sunlight, his shoulders gradually slumping under the weight of what felt like final rejection. Perhaps this is my legacy, he thought bitterly, to stand on bridges reaching for dreams I destroyed with my own hands. But then, Bernard. One word, his name carried on the evening breeze in her voice, that voice that had haunted his dreams for 5 years. He turned slowly, afraid this might be another cruel trick of his desperate imagination. But there she stood, Calantha silhouetted against the last rays of sunset, more beautiful than his memories had preserved. The years had added a new grace to her bearing, a quiet strength that took his breath away. She wore a simple cream dress that danced in the river breeze, her dark hair styled differently than he remembered, but her eyes, those eyes still held the same soul-searching depth that had first captured his heart. "You came," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. He took a step forward, then stopped, respecting the invisible boundaries between them. "I wasn't sure." "Neither was I," she admitted, her voice carrying both strength and vulnerability. "Until the moment I stepped onto this bridge. I wasn't sure." They stood in charged silence, London's heartbeat pulsing around them. Boats on the Thames below, cars and pedestrians crossing the historic bridge, life continuing its eternal flow while their private universe hung suspended in possibility. "The triplets," Bernard began softly. "Are beautiful," Calantha finished. "They're my miracle. The universe's way of showing me that sometimes the most precious gifts come wrapped in our deepest pain." Bernard's eyes filled with tears. "When I saw you with them in the park, I finally understood everything you tried to tell me. About family, about love, about what really matters." He took another tentative step forward. "I went to the doctors," he continued, his voice cracking. "You were right. All along, you were right. My pride cost us—" "Stop," Calantha interrupted gently. She moved closer, close enough that he could see the tears shimmering in her eyes. "The past is heavy enough without carrying it here." "But I need you to know," Bernard persisted, "that you were never the problem. My pride, my fear, my need to control everything. That was the problem. Watching you these past 2 weeks, seeing the mother you've become, the life you've built. You're magnificent, Calantha." A tear escaped down her cheek. "I never stopped loving you," she confessed. "Even when I hated you, I loved you." The space between them seemed to crackle with electricity. Below, the Thames flowed eternal, witness to countless stories of love lost and found. Above, the first stars began to peek through the twilight, each one a point of hope in the gathering dark. "May I—" Bernard's voice caught. He cleared his throat and tried again. "May I hold you? Just Once, even if this is goodbye? Calantha's step forward was her answer. They came together like waves meeting the shore, inevitable, powerful, natural. His arms encircled her as they had thousands of times before, and suddenly the years melted away. They clung to each other, tears flowing freely now, their hearts beating in sync as if they had never been apart. "I've missed you," she whispered against his chest. "Every day, every moment." "I've been lost without you," he responded, his voice thick with emotion. "Everything I've achieved has felt hollow. Every victory tastes like ash because you weren't there to share it." They stood entwined as darkness fell and the bridge's lights came on, casting them in a gentle glow. Other pedestrians passed by, some smiling at what appeared to be just another couple in love, unaware they were witnessing a miracle of reconciliation. When they finally pulled apart, just enough to look into each other's eyes, the world seemed to hold its breath. Bernard touched her cheek gently, reverently, wiping away a tear with his thumb. "I don't deserve a second chance," he said softly. "But if you're willing, if you could ever trust me again." Calantha placed her finger against his lips, silencing him. "Love isn't about deserving," she said wisely. "It's about choosing. Every day we choose who to love, who to forgive, who to become." She took his hand, lacing their fingers together, a simple gesture that felt like coming home. "The question isn't whether you deserve a second chance, Bernard. The question is, who have you chosen to become?" Under the twinkling lights of Tower Bridge, with London spreading out around them like a tapestry of possibilities, two souls who had been broken by pride began to heal through love. As Big Ben chimed in the distance, its deep tones rolling across the city like waves of blessing, Bernard and Calantha chose each other again, not in spite of their scars, but because of them. For sometimes the most beautiful things are born from our deepest wounds, and the strongest. Bridges are built where rivers once seemed uncrossable. 20 years after that fateful evening on Tower Bridge, the Ellison Mansion in Washington, D.C. tells a story of transformation that even fairy tales might envy. What was once a monument to corporate success has become a testament to love's power to rewrite destinies. The journey back wasn't simple. After their reunion in London, Bernard and Calantha faced the delicate task of weaving together two worlds. The triplets, Sophia, Alexander, and Isabella, approached their mother's rekindled love story with a mix of curiosity and caution. "They're not just your past," Calantha had told Bernard firmly. "They're our future." Bernard's response became legendary in their family story. He spent 3 months learning each child's favourite stories, foods, and dreams before even suggesting they return to Washington. His office, once dominated by market reports, filled with drawings from 3 artistic souls who gradually began signing their artwork to Dad. Their second wedding transcended mere celebration. It became a symphony of redemption. The National Cathedral, where they had first exchanged vows years ago, witnessed a ceremony that moved even the most hardened corporate veterans to tears. "Love," Bernard declared in his vows, his voice carrying to every corner of the sacred space, "isn't about perfection. It's about perseverance, about choosing each other every day, especially when it's hardest. Calantha, you taught me that family isn't built on bloodlines, but on heart lines. Our children, all 5 of them, are living proof of that truth." Calantha's response, holding both their past and present, touched every heart. Sometimes the longest distance isn't between London and Washington, but between pride and forgiveness. You've made that journey, Bernard. We all have. The triplets, now 10 years old, stood proudly beside them, no longer just witnesses, but active participants in this love story. Sophia, ever the leader, carried the rings. Alexander, the peacemaker, read a poem about family he'd written himself. Isabella, the dreamer, released white doves as they exchanged rings. What followed was more than just a marriage. It was the blending of worlds, the healing of old wounds, the creation of something entirely new. The Ellison Industries boardroom, once a temple to corporate achievement, now displayed family photos alongside quarterly reports. The company's policies on adoption, fertility treatment, and family support became industry standards. 2 years after their reunion, twins James and Grace arrived, not as replacements or completions, but as additions to an already whole family. Their birth story became another chapter in the family legend. How Bernard, the once proud CEO, wept openly in the delivery room, not just for their arrival, but for the journey that had brought them all here. The triplets, far from feeling displaced, embraced their role as older siblings with enthusiasm. They taught the twins everything from riding bikes to navigating social media, creating bonds that transcended biology. As Sophia often said, family isn't about sharing DNA, it's about sharing love. 20 years on, the Ellison mansion rings with the laughter of 5 children, their friends, and now, grandchildren. The garden, once Bernard's pride for its manicured perfection, has become a joyful chaos of family projects and memory-making. The white roses Calantha planted still bloom, now surrounded by children's climbing frames and art projects. Bernard's office, still commanding views of the Washington skyline, has transformed. Corporate awards share space with macaroni art and family photos. His most prized possession, a frame containing 2 items, the medical report that once triggered their separation, and beside it, a family portrait showing 7 smiling faces. Our greatest legacy, he often says, isn't what we build in steel and glass, but what we build in hearts and souls. Calantha's marketing genius now guides not just corporate strategies, but family philanthropic initiatives. The Ellison Family Foundation, led by all 5 children in various capacities, focuses on supporting families formed through adoption, helping couples struggling with fertility, and promoting the simple truth they learned, that love, not blood, makes a family. Their story has become more than personal triumph. It's become a beacon of hope. In Washington's high society, where appearances often trump authenticity, the Ellisons stand as proof that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the courage to rebuild, reimagine, and redeem. Every betrayal doesn't have a bad ending, Calantha often reminds struggling couples who seek their advice. Sometimes it's just the universe's complicated way of teaching us how to love better. On warm evenings, you might find them all on their terrace, Bernard and Calantha, the triplets with their own growing families, the twins pursuing their dreams while firmly anchored in family love. They gather to watch the sunset, sharing stories, dreams, and the kind of laughter that only comes from hearts that have known both breaking and healing. Their love story, spanning continents and decades, proves that sometimes the most beautiful chapters come after what we think is the ending. That family isn't about matching DNA, but about matching souls. That legacy isn't about passing on a name, but passing on love. And in the end, isn't that the greatest victory of all?